Imagine this. Your 6-week-old baby is burning with fever, 104 degrees. You're alone in the emergency room at 3 a.m., watching security camera footage of your billionaire husband kissing his mistress in an elevator. Now imagine he frames you for his crimes, gets you arrested, takes your baby, destroys your reputation with a viral deepfake video watched by 12 million people. This is Harper Morrison's story, and trust me, you want to hear how she fought back. If you love stories about justice, revenge, and women who refuse to stay silent, hit that like button right now. Drop a comment telling me what you would do in Harper's situation. And subscribe because this story will leave you speechless. Let's begin. The Seattle rain hammered against the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Morrison penthouse like 1,000 tiny fists demanding entry. Harper Sinclair Morrison stood in the nursery at 2:47 in the morning, her hand pressed against her 6-week-old son's forehead. Oliver's skin burned beneath her palm, 104 degrees. Her nursing instincts kicked in immediately. The training she had abandoned 18 months ago when Blake convinced her that being a tech CEO's wife was a full-time job. She grabbed her phone with shaking hands and dialed 911. Seattle Emergency Services. What's your emergency? My infant son has a fever of 104 degrees. He's lethargic and won't feed. I need an ambulance. Harper's voice remained steady despite the terror clawing at her chest. Ma'am, how old is the baby? 6 weeks, born full term, no complications. But his breathing is shallow and his fontanelle looks sunken. An ambulance is on the way. Stay on the line with me. Harper cradled Oliver against her chest, feeling his small body trembling. She glanced at the empty king-size bed visible through the nursery door. Blake's side remained untouched, the sheets still crisp and cold. She pulled up the Find My Phone app. Blake's location glowed on the screen. W Hotel, downtown Seattle, presidential suite. Her stomach dropped. While she waited for the ambulance, a text notification appeared. It was from Marcus, their building's night security manager. The message contained a video file with a single sentence. Thought you should see this, Mrs. Morrison. Harper's finger hesitated over the play button. Oliver whimpered against her shoulder. She tapped the screen. The security footage showed the building's private elevator. Timestamp 11:43 p.m. Just 3 hours ago. Blake stepped into the frame wearing the charcoal suit she had picked up from the dry cleaners yesterday. Behind him, a woman in a red dress followed. Vanessa Pierce, Blake's chief operating officer. Harper watched her husband's hand slide around Vanessa's waist, watched him pull her close, watched Vanessa's perfectly manicured fingers grip his tie as she pressed her lips against his. The elevator doors closed on their embrace. Oliver's cry snapped Harper back to reality. The ambulance siren wailed in the distance, growing louder. She grabbed the diaper bag with one hand, her phone with the other, and rushed toward the door. 30 minutes later, she sat in a plastic chair in the pediatric emergency room at Seattle Children's Hospital. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, harsh and unforgiving. A nurse she recognized from her days working in the ICU gave her a sympathetic smile as she passed. Dr. Robert Matthews emerged from the examination room, his expression grave. Mrs. Morrison, Oliver has a severe bacterial infection. His white blood cell count is critically elevated. We need to start IV antibiotics immediately and run more tests. How bad is it? Harper asked, though she already knew from the doctor's tone. If the infection reaches his bloodstream, we're looking at sepsis. He needs to be admitted. The next 24 hours are critical. Harper nodded, her throat too tight to speak. She pulled out her phone and called Blake. Straight to voicemail. She tried again. Voicemail. She sent a text. Oliver in ER. Bacterial infection. Critical. Come now. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. No response. Harper sat in the pediatric intensive care unit as nurses inserted an IV into Oliver's tiny arm. She held his other hand, murmuring reassurances he couldn't understand. The monitors beeped steadily, tracking his vital signs. Her phone buzzed. Finally. But it wasn't Blake. It was a notification from her bank. Joint account activity. $25,000 withdrawn. Authorization by Blake Morrison. Memo line Singapore business trip. Harper stared at the screen. Singapore. While their son fought a potentially life-threatening infection, Blake was planning an international trip. She opened her laptop. her fingers moving automatically through the motions she had performed 1,000 times as a nurse documenting patient care. But this time, she wasn't documenting medical information. She was downloading the security footage Marcus had sent her, backing it up to 3 separate cloud drives. At 6:37 in the morning, Blake finally appeared in the PECU doorway. He carried a Starbucks cup in one hand, his phone in the other. His suit was different from the one in the elevator footage. He had gone somewhere to change. "Harper, what happened? I just saw your text." His voice carried that practiced concern he used with investors. Harper looked at her husband, this man she had saved 4 years ago when his motorcycle slid on wet pavement and his chest stopped rising. This man whose ribs she had cracked performing CPR on the side of Highway 5 while rain poured down her face. This man she had pulled back from death itself. "Where were you?" she asked quietly. "Working. The IPO launches in 72 hours. You know how critical this is." Blake glanced at Oliver, then back at his phone screen. Harper held up her own phone, showing him the security footage. "You were at the W Hotel with Vanessa Pierce." Blake's jaw tightened for just a moment before his expression smoothed into something resembling sympathy. "Harper, sweetheart, you're exhausted. You're postpartum. This paranoia, it's concerning." "I'm not paranoid. I'm watching evidence. Vanessa was briefing me on the final IPO preparations. We needed privacy away from the office. You know how leaks happen in tech." He stepped closer, reaching for her hand. She pulled away. At 11:43 at night, in the presidential suite, Robert Matthews entered before Blake could respond. "Mr. and Mrs. Morrison, we have Oliver's test results. The infection is more serious than we initially thought. He's going to need emergency surgery to drain an abscess in his lymph nodes." Harper stood immediately. "What's the risk level?" "There's always risk with infant surgery, but without intervention, the infection will continue spreading. We need to operate within the next 2 hours." Blake's phone rang. He glanced at the screen. "Vanessa." "I need to take this," he said, already walking toward the door. "It's about the IPO." Robert Matthews looked at Harper with barely concealed disgust. "I'll give you both a moment to discuss the consent forms." But Blake was already in the hallway, his voice carrying back through the open door. "No, she doesn't suspect anything serious. After the surgery, I'll tell her I have to go to Singapore. Book us the Maldives suite for next week." Harper's hands clenched into fists. She looked down at Oliver, his small chest rising and falling beneath the tangle of wires and tubes. She had spent 4 years building a life with a man who would choose a business call over their dying son's surgery consultation. No, not just a business call, a vacation planning call with his mistress. The nurse returned with consent forms. Harper signed them alone while Blake's voice drifted from the hallway, making promises to someone who wasn't his wife. 4 years earlier, Harper Sinclair had been the best ICU nurse at Harborview Medical Center. She had steady hands, sharp instincts, and the kind of calm presence that made frightened patients trust her instantly. She loved the work, loved the feeling of holding someone's life in balance and tipping the scales towards survival. The motorcycle accident happened on a Tuesday. The ambulance called ahead with details that made Harper's stomach clench. 29-year-old male, massive chest trauma, stopped breathing twice en route. They were bringing him to her unit because everywhere else was full. When they wheeled Blake Morrison through the doors, his face was chalk white beneath the oxygen mask. Harper took one look at the monitors and knew he was dying. "He needs a chest tube now," she said, already moving. "His right lung has collapsed." The attending physician was too slow, too cautious. Harper didn't wait for approval. She grabbed the necessary equipment and inserted the tube herself, watching Blake's oxygen levels climb from critical to merely dangerous. For 3 days, she monitored him personally, adjusting medications and catching complications before they became fatal. On the 4th day, Blake opened his eyes and smiled at her. "You saved my life," he said, his voice rough from the breathing tube. "Just doing my job," Harper replied, checking his vitals. "Let me take you to dinner when I get out of here. I owe you everything." She should have said no. She should have maintained professional boundaries. But there was something in his eyes, something that made her feel seen for the first time in years. 3 months later, they were dating. 6 months after that, Blake's tech startup received its first major investment, his medical device concept, a wearable monitor that could detect heart attacks before they happened. was generating buzz in Silicon Valley. This is going to change everything, Blake told her over champagne in his new downtown loft. We're going to save millions of lives, you and me together. Harper believed him. She believed in the mission, in the technology, in the man who looked at her like she had given him a second chance at everything. They got married at the courthouse on a rainy Thursday. Blake's company was growing too fast for a big wedding. He said they would do something bigger later, after the first successful product launch. The launch never came. Instead, there were more investment rounds, more promises, more late nights at the office. Blake's company, Morrison Medical Technologies, went from 10 employees to 300. Harper kept working at the hospital, kept saving lives the old-fashioned way. Then Blake sat her down one evening and took her hands across the table. I need you to quit your job, he said gently. What? Why, Bummer? Because you're going to be the wife of a billionaire soon. The optics matter. Investors want to see stability, success. They want to see that I have a partner who believes in me yea enough to build this empire together. I do believe in you, Udanach, but I'm a nurse. It's who I am. Blake's expression shifted, something hard flickering beneath the charm. You're my wife. That's who you are now, and I need you to act like it. Harper quit the next week. She told herself it was temporary, that she could always go back after the company stabilized. But the company never stabilized. It just grew bigger, demanded more, consumed everything. When Harper got pregnant, Blake was in Tokyo for meetings. She took the test alone in their penthouse bathroom, staring at the two pink lines and wondering why she felt more lonely than joyful. Blake came home 3 days later with a Cartier bracelet and vague promises about being more present. But when Harper went into labor 8 months later, he was in a board meeting. She called him 7 times before he answered. Harper, this isn't a good time. The investors are here. The baby is coming, now. I'll be there soon. He arrived 4 hours after Oliver was born, still wearing his presentation suit, smelling like expensive cologne and someone else's perfume. He held his son for exactly 90 seconds before his phone rang and he stepped into the hallway. Now sitting in the PSU while Oliver prepared for emergency surgery. Harper finally understood. She had given up everything. Blake had given up nothing. The surgical team wheeled Oliver away at 8:15 in the morning. Harper followed as far as the doors would allow, then stood in the empty hallway, alone. Blake was gone again. He had muttered something about handling urgent IPO business and disappeared. Harper's phone buzzed. A text from Garrett Hayes, her friend from college who now worked as an investigative journalist for the Seattle Times. Harper, I need to talk to you about Blake. It's important. Call me when you can. She almost deleted it, almost decided she had enough problems without adding more. But something in Garrett's tone, even through text, made her fingers move. She called, Harper, thank God, listen. I've been investigating Morrison Medical Technologies for a story. There are things you need to know. Garrett, this really isn't a good time. Oliver is in surgery. I know, I'm sorry, but this can't wait. Blake's medical device, the heart monitor. It doesn't work. The clinical trials were faked. He's been submitting fraudulent data to the FDA for 3 years. Harper's vision blurred. That's not possible. I have the documents, internal emails, lab reports showing the device fails 90% of the time. Harper, people have died using Morrison's monitors. At least 12 that we know of. She slid down the wall until she was sitting on the cold hospital floor. Why are you telling me this? Because Blake's company is about to go public. In 72 hours, he's going to sell shares worth $2 billion based on a device that kills people, and I think Vanessa Pierce is helping him cover it up. Harper closed her eyes. Vanessa, the woman in the red dress, the woman in the elevator. Send me everything, Harper said quietly. Harper, you're his wife. This will destroy you too. Send me everything. 2 hours later, Oliver's surgeon emerged looking exhausted but relieved. The surgery went well. We removed a significant abscess. With antibiotics, he should make a full recovery. Harper felt her knees weaken with relief. Can I see him? He's in recovery, another hour. While she waited, Harper opened her encrypted email. Garrett had sent a folder containing hundreds of documents. She started reading. Her medical background making the technical data instantly comprehensible. Morrison Medical's heart monitor had a critical flaw in its algorithm. Instead of detecting irregular heartbeats early, it often failed to detect them at all. Test subjects had worn the devices while having actual heart attacks, and the monitors showed normal readings. Blake knew. The emails proved it. He had ordered engineers to falsify results, to cherry-pick data, to bury the failures. And Vanessa had helped orchestrate the cover-up, funneling hush money to families of the victims through shell corporations. Harper was reading a particularly damning email thread when her phone buzzed with a new text from Blake. We need to talk when you get home. She replied, okay. His response came 90 seconds later, fast enough that Harper knew it was pre-written. Already filed for divorce this morning. Lawyer will contact you. Prenup is ironclad. You get nothing. Don't try to fight this. Harper read the message 3 times. Then she opened the documents Garrett had sent and started taking screenshots, backing up everything to multiple drives. If Blake wanted a war, she would give him one, but she would fight on her terms, with her weapons, and she would win. Julia Brennan's law office overlooked Elliott Bay, floor-to-ceiling windows framing the gray water and distant mountains. Harper sat across from the attorney, Oliver sleeping in a carrier at her feet, while Julia reviewed the prenuptial agreement with the kind of expression usually reserved for terminal diagnoses. This is one of the most one-sided prenups I've seen in 20 years of practice, Julia said finally, setting down the document. Did you have independent legal counsel when you signed this? Blake said we didn't need it. He said prenups were just formalities, that we'd never use it. Harper's voice sounded hollow even to her own ears. Julia's perfectly manicured nail tapped against a specific clause. The infidelity provision only applies if you cheat. If he cheats, there's no penalty. You signed away rights to any assets acquired during the marriage, including his company stock. You get a lump sum of $50,000 and that's it. $50,000, the penthouse alone is worth $12 million. I'm aware, there's more. Julia flipped to another page. Blake's filing claims you're mentally unfit to care for Oliver. He submitted your postpartum depression screening from your 6-week checkup, the one where you honestly reported feeling overwhelmed and anxious. Michael Harper's blood turned to ice. That's confidential medical information. He got your permission, apparently. There's a release form here with your signature. I never signed that. Julia's expression darkened. Then we have forgery to add to the list. But proving it will take time we don't have. Harper, there's something else. Child Protective Services opened an investigation this morning. The room tilted. What? Blake filed a report claiming you neglected Oliver during his fever. He's alleging you delayed seeking medical treatment, that you were in a postpartum psychosis, that you're a danger to your child. That's insane, but I called 911 immediately. I got him to the hospital. The medical records prove it. I know, but CPS has to investigate every claim. They're sending a caseworker to interview you tomorrow. Julia leaned forward. Harper, listen to me carefully. Blake is not just leaving you. He's systematically erasing you, destroying your credibility, your finances, your parental rights. This is scorched earth warfare. Harper looked down at Oliver, his small chest rising and falling peacefully. What do I do? First, we fight the CPS investigation. I'll get your medical records. Testimony from Dr. Robert Matthews. Security footage showing exactly when you called for help. We prove you're a competent, caring mother. And second, we find out what Blake is really hiding. Men don't wage this kind of war without a reason. He's protecting something bigger than an affair. Harper pulled out her phone and showed Julia the documents Garrett had sent. I know what he's hiding. For the next hour, they reviewed the evidence of Morrison Medical Technologies fraud. Julia's expression grew darker with each page. This is criminal. Federal charges. If the SEC and FDA find out, Blake is looking at decades in prison. Good, Harper said flatly. Harper, you're still legally married to him. If investigators think you knew about the fraud, you could be charged as an accomplice. I had no idea. I quit my nursing job years ago. I haven't been involved in the company at all. Can you prove that? Harper hesitated. I attended some investor dinners, social events, My name is probably on some of the corporate paperwork as Blake's spouse. Julia closed the folder. Then we need to be very careful about how we use this information. We can't just dump it on the SE without protecting you first. So what do? We build a case that proves three things. One, you were kept deliberately ignorant of the fraud. Two, you're a fit mother. Three, Blake filed for divorce specifically to prevent you from discovering his crimes. Julia stood and walked to the window. The problem is evidence. We need proof that Blake actively hid the fraud from you. I have emails, texts, times I asked about the company and he changed the subject or told me not to worry about business. That's a start. What about Vanessa Pierce? What about her? She's the key to everything. If we can prove she and Blake conspired to commit fraud together, that their affair was part of a larger criminal enterprise, we can use that. But we need her to make a mistake. Harper's phone buzzed. A notification from her bank. Another withdrawal. $50,000. Authorization by Blake Morrison. Memo line legal retainer. He's draining our accounts, Harper said, showing Julia the screen. How much is left? Harper logged into their banking app. The joint account showed $247. The savings account had been emptied completely. The investment account was frozen, pending divorce proceedings. He left me with nothing, Harper whispered. Julia's jaw clenched. We file an emergency motion today. No judge will allow him to leave you destitute with an infant. But Harper, you need somewhere to stay. Can you go to family? My parents are dead. I don't have siblings. Harper's voice cracked. I gave up my friends when I quit nursing. Blake said they were jealous, that they didn't understand our lifestyle. What about the friend who sent you the documents, Garrett? Harper pulled up Garrett's contact. She hadn't actually spoken to him in 2 years. Blake had discouraged the friendship, said investigative journalists were too cynical, too distrustful. She texted, I need help. Garrett's response came in seconds. Address that evening. Harper moved into Garrett's spare bedroom in the Fremont neighborhood. The apartment was small, cluttered with journalism awards and mismatched furniture. Nothing like the sterile perfection of the Morrison penthouse. But it felt safe. Garrett helped her carry Oliver's portable crib upstairs. You can stay as long as you need. No questions asked. Thank you. Harper settled Oliver into the crib, watching him sleep. I don't know how to do this. Fight someone with unlimited money and no conscience. You do what you've always done. You save lives. Garrett handed her a cup of tea. Starting with your own. The next morning, the CPS caseworker arrived. Rachel Montgomery was a tired-looking woman in her 40s who took notes on everything. Harper showed her Oliver's medical records, the timeline of the emergency room visit, Dr. Robert Matthews' statement praising her quick response. Mrs. Morrison, your husband claims you've been exhibiting erratic behavior, mood swings, difficulty bonding with the baby. I've had normal postpartum adjustment, nothing clinical. My OB can confirm that. Rachel glanced around Garrett's modest apartment. You're not living in your marital home. My husband drained our bank accounts and locked me out of the penthouse. I had nowhere else to go. Rachel made a note. I'll need to speak with Mr. Morrison as well. The investigation will take approximately 2 weeks. In the meantime, do you have adequate resources to care for Oliver? Harper thought about the $247 in her checking account. Yes. Good, I'll be in touch. After Rachel left, Harper collapsed on Garrett's couch. Her phone buzzed with a news alert. Morrison Medical Technologies IPO launches tomorrow. Expected valuation $2.3 billion. Tomorrow, Blake would become a billionaire while Harper fought to keep custody of their son. She called Julia. We need to move faster. I'm working on it, but courts take time. Harper, even emergency motions. We don't have time. Once that IPO goes through, Blake will have unlimited resources to destroy me. Julia was silent for a moment. There might be another way. If we can prove the fraud before the IPO launches, the SEC will halt trading. Blake's company collapses. His leverage disappears. How do we do that? We need someone inside Morrison Medical to go on record. Someone willing to testify. Harper thought of the documents Garrett had sent, the names on the emails, the engineers who had been ordered to falsify data. I know someone, Lauren Abbott. She used to work with me at the hospital before Blake hired her away. Will she talk? I don't know, but I'm going to find out. Lauren Abbott's house was a small craftsman in the Ballard neighborhood, the kind of place where wind chimes hung from the porch and garden gnomes peeked from between the roses. Harper stood on the doorstep, Oliver in his carrier, and rang the bell. Lauren answered, looking 20 years older than the last time Harper had seen her. Her skin had a grayish pallor, her eyes shadowed with exhaustion, but she smiled when she saw Harper. I wondered when you'd come, Lauren said, opening the door wider. They sat in Lauren's kitchen drinking coffee while Oliver slept between them. The house smelled like lavender and something medicinal. You look terrible, Harper said gently. Lauren laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Stage 4 lung cancer, diagnosed 6 months ago. The doctors give me another 3 months, maybe 4. Oh, Lauren, I'm so sorry. Don't be. It's fitting, actually. Poetic justice. Lauren wrapped her hands around her coffee mug. Morrison Medical's heart monitor didn't kill me, but working for Blake Morrison did. Harper leaned forward. What do you mean? I was in charge of quality control for the device trials. I saw the failures. I documented every single one. 12 people died wearing monitors that didn't work. I reported it to Blake. He told me to bury the data or he'd destroy my career. But you kept records. I kept everything. Audio recordings of Blake ordering me to falsify reports. Emails from Vanessa Pierce detailing the cover-up. Video of Blake laughing about how easy it was to fool the FDA. Lauren's hands shook as she sipped her coffee. I was too scared to use it. Blake has powerful friends. He threatened to have me blacklisted from every medical company in the country if I talked. What changed? Lauren set down her mug. I'm dying anyway. Blake can't hurt me anymore. And maybe if I tell the truth, I can save some lives before I go. That's what we do, right? We save lives. Harper felt tears burning her eyes. Will you testify, go on record with what you know? On one condition, you promise me that Blake Morrison goes to prison. Not house arrest, not a fine, actual prison. I promise. Lauren pulled out a flash drive from her cardigan pocket. Everything is on here. Emails, recordings, falsified reports. Real data showing the device failure rate. There's also proof that Vanessa has been embezzling money through shell corporations. Blake and Vanessa have been running a Ponzi scheme for 3 years. Harper took the drive with trembling fingers. Why didn't you go to the authorities yourself? Because I was afraid. Because I convinced myself that maybe I was wrong. That maybe the data wasn't that bad. That maybe I was just being paranoid. Lauren's voice cracked. And because of that cowardice, 12 people died. Their families got settlements from shell companies and signed NDAs. Blake buried them like he buries everything. It's not too late to make this right. Isn't it? Lauren gestured to herself. I'm dying because I was too afraid to speak up. That's the real tragedy. Not the cancer, the silence. Harper stayed with Lauren for another hour, copying the files to multiple secure locations. When she left, Lauren hugged her tightly. Be careful, Lauren whispered. Blake doesn't just destroy careers. He destroys people. I know. He's trying to destroy me right now. Then you understand. This isn't a legal battle. It's a war. And Blake fights dirty. Back at Garrett's apartment, Harper spent the evening reviewing Lauren's files. The evidence was overwhelming. Blake had known about every device failure. He had personally ordered the cover-up, and Vanessa had helped him hide the bodies, both figuratively and literally. There were emails discussing how to manage the families of victims, payments routed through offshore accounts, legal threats against anyone who questioned the device's safety. But there was something else in the file, something that made Harper's blood run cold. A spreadsheet tracking Blake's personal trades of Morrison Medical stock. He had been selling shares for months, quietly offloading his position while telling investors the company was stronger than ever. Insider trading on a massive scale. And according to the timestamps, he had made his largest sale the morning after Oliver was born. While Harper was in the hospital recovering from childbirth, Blake had been dumping stock worth $40 million. Harper called Garrett. I need you to run a story tomorrow morning before the IPO launches. What story? Everything, the fraud, the deaths, the cover-up, all of it. Garrett was silent for a long moment. Harper, This will destroy Blake's company, but it will also destroy any chance you have of getting financial support in the divorce. I don't want his blow money. I want justice. Okay, send me the files. I'll have the story ready by 6 a.m. Garrett, there's something, Blake's been selling stock while telling investors to buy. That's securities fraud. The SEC needs to know immediately. I have a contact at the SEC. I'll send them the files tonight. After hanging up, Harper sat in the darkness of Garrett in the spare room, listening to Oliver breathe softly in his crib. She thought about Lauren, dying because she had stayed silent. She thought about the 12 people who had trusted Morrison Medical's devices and paid with their lives. She thought about Blake, who had looked her in the eye and promised to build something that mattered. He had built an empire on corpses and lies. Tomorrow, she would bring it all down. Her phone buzzed. A text from Blake. Last chance to settle this quietly. Sign the divorce papers. Take your $50,000 and walk away. Otherwise, I'll make sure you never see Oliver again. Harper looked at her son, sleeping peacefully in the second-hand crib Garrett had borrowed from a neighbor. She thought about the video footage of Blake kissing Vanessa. She thought about him leaving the hospital during Oliver's surgery. She thought about the man she had saved 4 years ago on the side of Highway 5, and wondered if she had made a terrible mistake bringing him back to life. She typed her response. See you in court. The Seattle Times published Garrett's expose at 6 a.m. By 6:30, every major news outlet in the country had picked up the story. Morrison Medical Technologies, a deadly fraud. The headline blazed across phones, tablets, televisions. By 7 a.m., Morrison Medical's IPO had been halted pending SEC investigation. Blake's company lost $2 billion in value overnight. By 8 a.m., Harper's phone started ringing. Reporters wanting comments, lawyers offering to represent her, random people calling her a hero. By 9 a.m., Vanessa Pierce posted a video to TikTok. Harper was feeding Oliver when Garrett burst into the room. You need to see this. He held up his phone. Vanessa's perfectly made-up face filled the screen, tears streaming down her cheeks. I never meant to fall in love with a married man, Vanessa said, her voice breaking. Blake Morrison pursued me relentlessly. He told me his wife was unstable, violent, that he was afraid for his son's safety. He showed me bruises. He played me recordings of her screaming at the baby. Harper's vision blurred. That's not true. None of that is true. Garrett's expression was grim. Keep watching. Vanessa dabbed at her tears with a tissue. I know I should have been stronger. I should have walked away. But when Blake told me Harper had threatened to kill herself and the baby, I felt I had to help him. I've been working with CPS to document her dangerous behavior. I have evidence, audio recordings, photos, everything. The video cut to an image. Harper's face, twisted in apparent rage. The photo was doctored. Harper could see the slight blur around the edges where someone had manipulated her expression. Then came audio, a woman's voice screaming, I can't do this anymore. I can't. He won't stop crying. The sound of a baby wailing. Shut up, please, just shut up. Harper felt like she was drowning. That's not me. That's not my voice. It's AI generated, Garrett said. Deepfake audio. But most people won't know that. The video continued. Vanessa looked directly at the camera, her eyes shining with manufactured sincerity. I'm speaking out because I can't stay silent while a child is in danger. Harper Morrison is not well. She needs help, and Oliver needs protection. The video ended with a caption. # Harper Morrison is abusive. # save Oliver. # speaking truth. How many views? Harper asked, her voice barely a whisper. Garrett checked. 12 million in the last 90 minutes. It's trending #1 on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram. Everyone is sharing it. Harper's phone exploded with notifications. Texts from numbers she didn't recognize. Emails flooding her inbox. She opened Twitter and immediately wished she hadn't. # Harper Morrison is abusive was trending worldwide. Thousands of people calling her a monster, demanding she lose custody, threatening violence. Someone had found Garrett's address, posted it online, called for protests outside the building. We need to get you out of here, Garrett said. It's not safe, Julia called. Harper, don't say anything to anyone. Don't respond to the video. Don't defend yourself publicly. Anything you say will be twisted. But people think I abused my son. They think I'm dangerous. Let me handle it. I'm already preparing a defamation lawsuit. We'll prove the audio is fake. But you need to stay off social media. Do you understand? Harper hung up and looked at Oliver, who gazed at her with complete trust. How do you explain to a baby that the entire world thinks his mother is a monster by noon? News vans had surrounded Garrett's building. Reporters camped on the sidewalk. Cameras trained on every entrance. Harper was trapped. The CPS caseworker, Rachel Montgomery, called. Mrs. Morrison, I've seen the video. I need to conduct an emergency evaluation. The audio is fake. It's AI generated. I still need to see Oliver. Today, Rachel arrived an hour later, pushing through the crowd of reporters. She examined Oliver carefully, checking for signs of abuse or neglect. She found nothing. He appears healthy and well cared for, Rachel said. But Mrs. Morrison, the public outcry is significant. My supervisor is under pressure to remove Oliver from your care pending further investigation. You can't do that. You just said he's healthy. I'm trying to help you, but I need you to cooperate fully. I need access to your medical records. I need character witnesses. I need proof that the video is fabricated. How long do I have? 48 hours. If I don't have compelling evidence that you're a fit mother, I'll have to recommend emergency foster placement. After Rachel left, Harper sat on the floor with Oliver in her lap and cried. Not the quiet, dignified tears of someone who has lost something small. The raw, gasping sobs of someone watching her entire world collapse. Garrett sat down beside her. We're going to fix this. How everyone believes her. Everyone thinks I'm abusive. Oh, not everyone. Your former colleagues at the hospital are already posting defenses of you. Dr. Robert Matthews gave an interview calling you one of the best nurses he's ever worked with. We're fighting back. But the damage was done. By evening, Harper's face was plastered across every news site. Abusive mother exposed. Tech CEO's wife's dark secret. Child in danger. Blake appeared on the local news, looking appropriately concerned. I'm heartbroken, he said, his voice heavy with false emotion. I tried to help Harper. I encouraged her to get treatment for postpartum depression, but she refused. She became violent. I had no choice but to protect our son. The interviewer nodded sympathetically. What do you want people to know? That mental illness is real, that new mothers need support, and that sometimes love isn't enough to keep a child safe. Blake looked directly at the camera. Harper, if you're watching, please get help. For Oliver's sake. Harper threw her phone across the room. It hit the wall and shattered. He's winning, she said to Garrett. He's destroyed my reputation, my credibility, everything. Even if I prove the audio is fake, people will always wonder. They'll always think maybe there's some truth to it. Then we don't just prove the audio is fake. We prove why Vanessa made him it. We expose the whole conspiracy. How shall Garrett pulled out his laptop. I've been digging into Vanessa's background. She's not just Blake's COO. She's his partner in the fraud. They've been moving money together, covering up deaths together. If we can prove they manufactured this video to discredit you before you could expose them, we flip the narrative. That will take time we don't have. Rachel is recommending foster care in 48 hours. Then we work fast. Garrett opened a file. Lauren sent me something else before you arrived. Emails between Blake and Vanessa discussing you, planning your destruction. They wrote it all down, Harper, every step. Harper looked at the screen, email after email detailing Blake and Vanessa's plan. Discredit Harper as mentally unstable. Use the divorce to seize all assets. Silence her before she could expose the fraud. One email from Vanessa to Blake stood out. Once the deepfake video goes viral, no one will believe anything she says. CPS will remove the child. You'll have full custody and full control. Problem solved. Problem solved. That's what Harper was to them. A problem to be solved. She looked at Oliver, sleeping peacefully despite the chaos swirling around him. She thought about Lauren, dying because she had been too afraid to speak up. Harper was done being afraid. Publish the emails, she said to Garrett. All of them. Show the world exactly who Blake and Vanessa really are. That might not be enough to stop CPS. Then I'll fight them in court. I'll fight everyone. But I'm not letting them win. Her phone buzzed. A news alert. Breaking FBI raids Morrison Medical Technologies headquarters. Harper smiled for the first time in days. The war was just beginning. The FBI raid on Morrison Medical Technologies made international news. Agents in windbreakers carrying boxes of evidence. Blake in handcuffs. His expression perfectly composed for the cameras. Vanessa being led away separately. Her red dress a slash of color against the gray Seattle morning. Harper watched it on Garrett's television. Oliver in her arms. She should have felt victorious. Instead, she felt numb. The SEC is charging them both with securities fraud and conspiracy, Garrett said, reading from his phone. The FDA has opened a criminal investigation into the device deaths. This is huge. Harper, you did this. I didn't do anything. Lauren did. She's the one who kept the evidence. Harper's phone rang. Julia Brennan. Have you seen the news? Julia asked. Yes, Blake's been arrested. Not just Blake. Harper, you need to sit down. I'm already sitting. The FBI wants to talk to you. They have evidence that suggests you may have been involved in the fraud. Harper's entire body went cold. That's impossible. I didn't know anything about it. Vanessa provided them with emails. Communications allegedly from you to Blake discussing the cover-up. IP addresses traced to your laptop. Your digital signature on documents authorizing payments to victims' families. I never sent those emails. I never signed anything. I know, but proving it will be difficult. Harper, they're coming to arrest you within the hour. For what? Conspiracy to commit securities fraud, obstruction of justice, accessory to manslaughter. Julia's voice cracked slightly. They think you helped Blake cover up the deaths. Harper looked at Oliver. What about my son? CPS will take emergency custody pending your arraignment. I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do to stop it. The line went dead. Harper sat frozen, unable to process what she had just heard. Arrested. For crimes she didn't commit. For a conspiracy she had exposed. Garrett was already packing a bag. You need to run. Right now, I can get you out of the city. I'm not running. That makes me look guilty. Harper, they're going to put you in jail. They're going to take Oliver. Then I'll fight from jail. But I'm not running. 30 minutes later, FBI agents knocked on Garrett's door. Harper opened it with Oliver in her arms. Harper Morrison, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit securities fraud. The lead agent said she was a woman in her 30s, her expression professionally neutral. You have the right to remain silent. Harper barely heard the rest of the Miranda warning. She was focused on Oliver, trying to memorize the weight of him, the smell of his baby shampoo, the soft sound of his breathing. A CPS worker arrived to take Oliver. The same woman, Rachel Montgomery, who had interviewed Harper 2 days ago. Rachel's eyes were sympathetic, but her hands were firm as she lifted Oliver from Harper's arms. No, Harper said, her voice breaking. Please don't take him. I'm sorry, Mrs. Morrison. It's policy when a parent is arrested. Oliver started crying, reaching for Harper. The sound cut through her like a blade. He needs me. He's only 6 weeks old. Please. But the CPS worker was already walking away, Oliver's cries fading as the door closed behind them. Harper stood in Garrett's living room in handcuffs, watching her son disappear. She didn't resist when the agents led her outside, didn't flinch when camera flashes exploded in her face, didn't react to the reporters shouting questions. Mrs. Morrison, did you help your husband commit fraud? Harper, were you aware of the deaths? Do you have any comment on the victims' families? She kept her eyes forward, her face blank. Inside, she was screaming. The King County Jail was exactly as grim as Harper remembered from her nursing days, when she had occasionally treated inmates. Fluorescent lights, concrete walls, the smell of industrial cleaner and desperation. They processed her efficiently. Fingerprints, mugshot, orange jumpsuit, cell number 47. Her cellmate was a woman named Annie Campbell who was awaiting trial for check fraud. Annie took one look at Harper and said, "You're the baby killer lady from the news." "I didn't kill anyone. I exposed the people who did." Annie shrugged. "Same thing in here." Harper lay on the thin mattress and stared at the ceiling. Somewhere in the city, Oliver was in a stranger's home, crying for a mother who couldn't come. Blake and Vanessa were probably already making bail. their expensive lawyers smoothing every obstacle, and Harper was in jail, charged with crimes she didn't commit, watching everything she loved slip away. She thought about Lauren's words. Blake doesn't just destroy careers, he destroys people. Julia visited the next morning. Bail is set at $2 million. I don't have $2 million. I have 247. I know. I'm working on it. But Harper, there's something else. Blake and Vanessa made bail this morning. 3 million each. They're already free. Of course they are. Blake held a press conference. He claims you've been unstable for months, that you threatened to expose false information about his company unless he gave you money in the divorce. He's painting himself as the victim of an extortion scheme. Harper laughed, a sound like breaking glass. And people believe him. Some do. The narrative is confusing. There's so much information flying around. Half the country thinks you're a hero, and half thinks you're a criminal. What about Oliver? In foster care, the hearing for permanent placement is in 72 hours. If you're still in jail, you'll lose custody. Wicked, then get me out. I'm trying, but $2 million is a lot of money. After Julia left, Harper sat alone in her cell. The jail television was tuned to a local news station. Blake's press conference played on loop. He stood on the courthouse steps in a perfectly tailored suit, Vanessa beside him looking pale and fragile. My wife is sick, Blake said, his voice heavy with manufactured sadness. I've tried to help her, but her paranoia, her delusions, they've spiraled out of control. I pray she gets the treatment she needs. The reporter asked about the fraud charges. Blake's expression shifted to righteous indignation. Those charges are based on falsified evidence planted by my wife. She had access to all my company files. She used her medical knowledge to create convincing forgeries. The truth will come out in court. Harper watched her husband lie with the same charm he had used when he proposed, the same warmth he had shown when he held Oliver for the first time, the same sincerity he had deployed when he promised to build something that mattered. She had saved his life 4 years ago, and he was using that life to destroy hers. Annie Campbell sat down beside her. You really didn't do it, did you? No, but you're going to get blamed for it anyway. That's how it works when you're married to money. Harper closed her eyes. I won't let him win. Everyone says that, but the rich always win. That's why they're rich. That night, lying on the concrete bunk, Harper made a decision. She couldn't fight Blake from inside a jail cell. She couldn't save Oliver if she was locked away. But she could tell the truth. Loudly, publicly, undeniably. She called Garrett Collect. I need you to set up an interview. Every news outlet that will have me, I'm going to tell my story. Harper, Julia said not to talk to the press. Julia's not the one in jail. Set it up. Tomorrow if possible. You're sure? I've never been more sure of anything in my life. Because Blake had made one critical mistake. He had underestimated the woman he married. The woman who had pulled him back from death. The woman who was about to make him wish she hadn't. Garrett worked his journalist connections overnight. By the next afternoon, Harper had secured an interview with Sarah Bennett, a veteran reporter known for hard-hitting investigative pieces. The interview would air that evening on all major networks. The jail allowed Harper to clean up for the cameras. She wore her orange jumpsuit without shame. Her hair pulled back. No makeup. She wanted America to see exactly what Blake had reduced her to. Sarah Bennett sat across from her in the jail's visitor room, camera crew positioned to capture every word. Mrs. Morrison, thank you for speaking with us. Let's start with a simple question. Did you participate in your husband's fraud scheme? No. I had no knowledge of Morrison Medical's failures until 3 days ago, when a journalist friend showed me evidence. As soon as I learned the truth, I cooperated with authorities. Your husband claims you fabricated that evidence out of revenge for his affair. My husband is a liar, but I have proof. Harper looked directly at the camera. Everything I'm about to tell you is documented. Lauren Abbott, a former quality control specialist at Morrison Medical, kept records of every communication, every order to falsify data, every cover-up. Those records have been provided to the FBI, the SEC, and the FDA. They're real. Lauren Abbott is dying of cancer. Why should people trust her testimony? Because she has nothing to gain by lying. Blake Morrison can't hurt her career anymore, can't threaten her. She's speaking up because 12 people died using defective medical devices, and she wants justice before she dies. Sarah leaned forward. Let's talk about the abuse allegations. Vanessa Pierce posted a video showing you screaming at your infant son. What's your response? That audio is a deep fake, AI generated, not my voice. I've requested independent forensic analysis, which will prove it's fabricated. But even without that analysis, ask yourself why Vanessa posted that video. Why now? Well, you tell me. Because I was about to expose their fraud. Because Blake needed to discredit me before I could tell the truth. The video was posted hours after the Seattle Times published evidence of Morrison Medical's crimes. That's not a coincidence. That's a conspiracy. A conspiracy to do what? To destroy my credibility so no one would believe me when I revealed their fraud. To take my son so I couldn't fight back. To silence me permanently. Harper's voice remained steady, clinical. Blake Morrison is not a victim. He's a predator, and I refuse to be his prey. The interview lasted 45 minutes. Harper detailed everything, the affair, the hospital abandonment, the financial abuse, the prenup trap. She showed documents on camera, emails, bank records, security footage. She told America about Lauren Abbott's courage, about the 12 victims who died, about Blake's insider trading and Vanessa's embezzlement. And she looked into the camera and said, I'm not asking for sympathy. I'm asking for justice, for Lauren, for the victims, for every woman who's ever been silenced by a powerful man. The interview aired at 7 p.m. By 8 p.m., it had 12 million views online. By 9 p.m., # justice. For Harper was trending. By 10 p.m., 3 more women had come forward claiming Blake had harassed them at Morrison Medical. By 11 p.m., Garrett posted bail. Who paid? Harper asked as she walked out of King County Jail, still in her orange jumpsuit. About 15,000 people. Crowdfunding. Your interview went viral. People donated everything from $5 to $5,000. We raised $2.3 million in 4 hours. Harper stood on the courthouse steps, the same steps where Blake had held his press conference. Reporters swarmed, but this time Harper didn't shy away. I want to thank everyone who believed in me, she said, who saw the truth through the lies. This fight isn't over, but tonight I'm going to hug my son, and tomorrow I'm going to make sure Blake Morrison never hurts anyone again. The crowd erupted in cheers, but Harper's phone buzzed with a text from Julia. Don't celebrate yet. Blake's planning something. Stay alert. Harper barely had time to process the warning before her phone rang. Rachel Montgomery from CPS. Mrs. Morrison, I've reviewed the forensic analysis of the audio from Vanessa Pierce's video. It's definitively a deepfake. I'm recommending Oliver be returned to your custody immediately. Harper felt her knees weaken with relief. When can I see him? Tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. at my office. Harper spent that night at Garrett's apartment, unable to sleep. She watched the interview coverage on every news channel, legal analysts debating her case, medical experts confirming the device was defective, ethics professors discussing corporate fraud. The narrative had shifted. Harper was no longer the villain. She was the whistleblower. But Blake wasn't finished. At 3 a.m., his legal team released a statement claiming Harper had violated attorney-client privilege by discussing the divorce publicly. They filed for full custody, alleging Harper was mentally unstable and using Oliver as a pawn for publicity. Julia called. He's trying to turn your interview against you, claiming you're exploiting Oliver for sympathy. Can he do that? He can try, but the forensic evidence supports you. The public supports you. We have momentum. What about the fraud charges against me? The FBI is reviewing Vanessa's planted evidence. They're starting to see inconsistencies. But it will take time to clear your name completely. Harper looked at the photo of Oliver she kept on her phone. Tomorrow she would hold him again. That was all that mattered. At 10 a.m., she walked into Rachel Montgomery's office. Oliver was there, in a portable crib, sleeping peacefully. Harper broke down crying when she picked him up. Holding him so tightly, the social worker gently suggested she loosen her grip. I'm sorry, baby, Harper whispered. I'm so sorry I couldn't protect you. Oliver opened his eyes and smiled, that toothless, innocent smile that made everything worth fighting for. We're going to be okay, Harper told him. I promise, but as she carried Oliver out of the building, She saw the news vans, saw the reporters, saw the crowd that had gathered, half supporting her, half calling her a liar. And she realized Blake had been right about one thing. This was war, and it was far from over. Harper spent the next week rebuilding her life piece by piece. Garrett's apartment became her war room. Julia worked 16-hour days preparing for the custody hearing. Lauren Abbott, despite her declining health, agreed to testify. But Harper needed more than testimony. She needed irrefutable proof that Blake and Vanessa had conspired to frame her. She found it in the most unexpected place. Victor Castellano, Blake's biggest business rival, called her directly. Mrs. Morrison, I believe we can help each other. I'm not interested in corporate games, Miss Castellano. This isn't a game. Blake Morrison destroyed my company 3 years ago using the same tactics he's using on you. False accusations, planted evidence, character assassination. I've been investigating him ever since. I have information you need. They met at a coffee shop in Fremont. Victor was a silver-haired man in his 50s, wearing an expression of someone who had fought hard battles and lost most of them. Blake stole my patents, Victor said, sliding a folder across the table. The heart monitor technology mine originally. He copied it, filed new patents under Morrison Medical, then sued me for infringement. By the time I proved the patents were fraudulent, my company had gone bankrupt. Harper opened the folder. Inside were documents showing Blake had a pattern of stealing intellectual property, silencing whistleblowers, and destroying anyone who challenged him. Why are you showing me this? Because Blake's going to prison. I want to make sure he stays there. Victor leaned forward. I also have something else. Security footage from Morrison Medical's servers. It shows Vanessa Pierce accessing your personal laptop remotely and sending emails using your credentials. She planted every piece of evidence the FBI used to arrest you. Harper's pulse quickened. Can you testify to this? Better. I can provide the original footage with metadata showing when and how Vanessa fabricated the evidence. Your lawyer can use it to get the charges dropped. Why would you help me? Victor's expression hardened. Because Blake Morrison is a cancer. He destroys everything he touches. Someone needs to cut him out before he kills again. Harper took the folder and the flash drive Victor offered. That night, she and Julia reviewed everything. The evidence was damning. Vanessa had systematically framed Harper, creating a digital trail that made it look like Harper had helped Blake commit fraud. This is enough to clear you, Julia said. I'll file motions tomorrow to dismiss all charges. What about custody? With the deepfake exposed and the planted evidence proven, CPS has no grounds to keep Oliver from you. Blake's credibility is destroyed. But Harper wasn't satisfied with defense. She wanted offense. What if we don't just clear my name? What if we go after them criminally? Julia raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? Vanessa committed computer fraud when she hacked my laptop. She committed perjury when she gave false statements to the FBI. Blake committed witness tampering when he coerced Lauren into silence. They both committed conspiracy to obstruct justice. You want to file criminal complaints. I want them prosecuted. Fully. I want every crime they committed documented and punished. Julia smiled. Now you're thinking like a lawyer. Over the next 48 hours, Julia filed a cascade of motions. Dismiss all charges against Harper. Introduce evidence of Vanessa's computer fraud. Request investigation into Blake's witness tampering. She also filed a civil lawsuit. Harper Morrison versus Blake Morrison and Vanessa Pierce. Defamation, fraud, intentional infliction of emotional distress, demanding $50 million in damages. We won't get $50 million, Julia said, but we'll make them fight for every dollar. And every deposition, every court appearance, every public record will expose more of their crimes. The media coverage for it shifted entirely. Harper was no longer the accused. She was the victim fighting back. And America loved it. Support groups formed online. Women who had been silenced by powerful men shared their stories. #Believe Harper became a movement. Donations poured in to help cover legal fees. Lauren Abbott agreed to an interview with Garrett for the Seattle Times. She appeared frail but determined, her voice steady as she detailed Morrison Medical's fraud. I kept quiet because I was afraid, Lauren said. But Harper Morrison wasn't afraid. She exposed the truth even when it cost her everything. That's real courage. That's what saving lives looks like. The interview went viral. Lauren became the face of corporate whistleblowing. Her testimony gave courage to other Morrison medical employees, who started coming forward with their own stories of Blake's corruption. 3 engineers testified that Blake had ordered them to falsify clinical data. 2 sales representatives revealed Blake had bribed FDA officials. A former assistant claimed Blake had kept a slush fund for paying off anyone who threatened to expose him. The evidence mountain grew so high that even Blake's expensive lawyers couldn't climb it. But Blake had one final card to play. He announced his engagement to Vanessa Pierce, a carefully staged photo op at a waterfront restaurant, complete with a 5-carat diamond ring and champagne toasts. The message was clear, and we're victims of a vindictive ex-wife. But love conquers all. Harper watched the engagement announcement with cold fury. He's trying to control the narrative, Garrett said, playing the sympathy card. Then we need to give him something he can't control. What do you have in mind? Harper pulled up the final file from Lauren's flash drive, the one she had been saving. Video footage of Blake and Vanessa, taken by a security camera in Blake's office 6 months ago. In the video, Blake and Vanessa discussed their plan to destroy Harper. Every detail laid out: the affair timing, the prenup exploitation, the CPS complaints. Even the deepfake video was mentioned. "We're going to ruin her," Blake said on the recording, laughing. "She'll lose the kid, lose her credibility, lose at everything, and there's nothing she can do about it." Vanessa kissed him. Poor Harper. She should have stayed quiet and taken the $50,000. The video was 30 minutes of damning conversation, proof of premeditated conspiracy. "Garrett, can you publish this? Are you sure once this is out, there's no going back?" "I'm sure, Blake wanted war. Let's give him one." The video published the next morning. Within hours, it had 50 million views. Blake and Vanessa's engagement became a punchline. Their carefully crafted victim narrative collapsed. The FBI arrested them both again, this time on charges of conspiracy to commit fraud, witness tampering, and obstruction of justice. This time, bail was denied. Harper watched the arrest on television, Oliver in her lap. She felt no joy, no satisfaction, just exhaustion. "It's almost over," she whispered to her son. Almost. But the hardest battle was still ahead: the custody hearing, where Harper would have to prove she deserved to keep the child Blake had tried to steal. The King County Superior Courthouse was packed the morning of Harper's custody hearing. Reporters lined the hallways. Supporters held signs outside. "Justice for Harper. Protect whistleblowers. Blake Morrison belongs in prison." Judge Patricia Winters presided, a stern woman in her 60s known for no-nonsense rulings. She looked at Harper and Blake across the courtroom with equal skepticism. Blake wore an orange jumpsuit, his hands cuffed in front of him. Even in jail clothes, he maintained that confident posture, that smile that had once made Harper's heart race. Now it just made her sick. Julia stood and addressed the court. "Your Honor, my client has been the victim of a systematic campaign to destroy her credibility and steal her child. Every accusation against her has been proven false. The abuse allegations were fabricated using deepfake technology. The fraud charges were based on planted evidence. Mrs. Morrison has done nothing wrong except expose her husband's crimes." Blake's attorney, a sharp-faced man named Richard Sullivan, stood. "Your Honor, Mrs. Morrison may be innocent of criminal charges, but that doesn't make her a fit mother. She's unstable. She involves her infant son in media circuses. She uses him as a prop for her revenge campaign against my client." "Revenge," Julia's voice rose. "Mr. Morrison tried to frame his wife for fraud. He conspired with his mistress to fake evidence of child abuse. He attempted to steal custody through perjury and manufactured evidence. That's not a marriage dispute. That's organized crime." Judge Winters held up a hand. "I've read the case files, both of them. This is one of the most disturbing situations I've encountered in 30 years on the bench." She looked at Blake. "Mr. Morrison, you stand accused of conspiracy, fraud, and multiple counts of perjury. You're being held without bail pending trial, correct?" "Yes, Your Honor. But those charges are—" "I didn't ask for your opinion. I asked for confirmation." Judge Winters turned to Harper. "Mrs. Morrison, you've been cleared of all criminal charges. The FBI has publicly apologized for the arrest." "Correct. Yes, Your Honor. and the abuse allegations made by Vanessa Pierce have been forensically proven to be fabricated. Yes, Your Honor. Judge Winters reviewed her notes. I'm also aware that Mrs. Morrison worked as an ICU nurse before her marriage, that she has no history of violence or instability, that she responded appropriately to her son's medical emergency, that every healthcare professional who has evaluated her describes her as a competent, caring mother. Blake's attorney stood. Your Honor, if I may, you may not. Sit down. Judge Winters removed her glasses. Here's what's going to happen. Full custody of Oliver Morrison is granted to Harper Morrison. Mr. Morrison's parental rights are suspended pending the outcome of his criminal trial. If he's convicted, we'll revisit permanent termination of parental rights. Blake shot to his feet. You can't do this. He's my son. Bailiff, restrain the defendant. Judge Winters' voice was ice. Mr. Morrison, you forfeited your right to that child the moment you chose fraud over family. You forfeited it when you left him in the hospital. You forfeited it when you tried to frame his mother for crimes you committed. This is insane. She's poisoned you against me. No, Mr. Morrison, your own actions poisoned me against you. Your own recorded words. Your own conspiracy. You thought you could destroy a woman and steal her child. Instead, you destroyed yourself. Judge Winters slammed her gavel. This hearing is adjourned. Blake was still shouting as bailiffs dragged him from the courtroom. This isn't over. Harper, you hear me? This isn't over. Harper stood frozen, unable to process what had just happened. She had won. Full custody. Blake's rights suspended. Julia hugged her. It's over. You won. But Harper didn't feel victorious. She felt hollowed out. 4 years of her life had been built on lies. 4 years of loving a man who had never existed. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Harper made a brief statement. I want to thank everyone who supported me through this nightmare. Judge Winters for seeing the truth. My attorney, Julia Brennan, for fighting tirelessly. Garrett Hayes for exposing the fraud. And Lauren Abbott, who had the courage to speak up even when it cost her everything. What's next for you? A reporter shouted. Harper looked at the cameras. I'm going to rebuild my life, return to nursing, raise my son, and make sure no other woman has to fight this battle alone. Do you forgive Blake Morrison? The question hung in the air. Harper thought about the man she had saved on Highway 5, the man who had promised to change the world, the man who had instead tried to destroy hers. No, she said simply. I don't forgive him, but I'm done letting him control my story. She walked away from the courthouse, Oliver in her arms, into a future Blake couldn't touch. 3 weeks later, Lauren Abbott died. Harper spoke at her funeral, fighting tears as she addressed the small crowd of mourners. Lauren taught me that silence has a cost. That fear can kill more surely than any disease. She found the courage to speak up even when she had everything to lose. Because of her, 12 families have justice. Because of her, Blake Morrison will spend years in prison. Because of her, I have my son. Harper placed a single white rose on Lauren's casket. Thank you for saving my life. I promise to honor yours. The trial came 6 months later. Blake and Vanessa faced multiple charges: securities fraud, conspiracy, obstruction of justice, perjury. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Harper testified for 2 days, detailing Blake's systematic abuse, Vanessa's conspiracy, the manufactured evidence. She remained calm throughout, clinical, letting the facts speak. Lauren's recorded testimony was played for the jury, her weak but determined voice filling the courtroom. Blake Morrison knew his device was killing people. He knew and he didn't care. Profit mattered more than lives. The jury deliberated for 4 hours, guilty on all counts. Blake Morrison was sentenced to 25 years in federal prison. Vanessa Pierce received 15 years. Both were ordered to pay restitution to victims' families totaling $87 million. Harper attended the sentencing. She wanted to see Blake's face when he heard the verdict. He looked at her across the courtroom, his expression finally stripped of charm and manipulation. Just raw hatred. This is your fault, he mouthed. Harper smiled. I know, she mouthed back, because it was her fault. She had exposed him. She had fought back. She had refused to be destroyed. And she would do it again, 1 year after the trial. Harper stood in the lobby of Seattle Children's Hospital wearing scrubs again. The familiar smell of antiseptic and hope, the sound of beeping monitors and squeaking shoes on linoleum. She was back where she belonged. The hospital had offered her a position running a new program, support services for families experiencing medical crises. Harper used her experience, both as a nurse and as someone who had survived her own crisis, to help parents navigate the impossible. Oliver, now 18 months old, spent his days at the hospital's on-site childcare. Harper could visit him during breaks, watch him play with other children, see him laugh freely. He would never remember the chaos of his first months, never remember the custody battle, the jail cell, the fear. Harper would make sure of it. She had created something else, too. Lauren's Legacy Foundation, a nonprofit dedicated to protecting medical whistleblowers and supporting families affected by corporate fraud. The foundation had already helped expose 2 other medical device companies selling defective products. It had provided legal support to 3 whistleblowers facing retaliation. It had funded scholarships for nursing students in Lauren's name. Harper ran the foundation from a small office in Fremont, working nights and weekends while maintaining her hospital position. The work was exhausting, but it felt right. Garrett stopped by her office one evening, carrying takeout containers. "You're working too hard," says the journalist who filed 7 investigative pieces last month. "Fair point." He set the food on her desk. "I have news. Blake filed an appeal." Harper didn't even look up from her paperwork. "Let him. He'll lose." "You're not worried about a convicted felon filing appeals from federal prison?" "No, I'm done being afraid of Blake Morrison." "Good, because I also have other news. The Seattle Times wants to do a feature on the foundation. Full spread, your story, Lauren's legacy, the impact you're having." Harper hesitated. "I don't know if I want more publicity." "It's not about you. It's about helping other people find the courage to speak up. You said you wanted to make sure no other woman had to fight this battle alone. This is how you do it." She thought about the messages she received daily: women trapped in abusive marriages, employees pressured to stay silent about corporate crimes, mothers fighting custody battles against wealthy, manipulative men. "Okay, schedule the interview." The feature ran 2 weeks later. From Victim to Victor: How Harper Morrison Built Justice from Betrayal. The article detailed everything: the fraud, the conspiracy, the custody battle, but it focused on what came after: the rebuilding, the foundation, the lives saved. Response was overwhelming. Donations flooded in. Women contacted the foundation asking for help. Medical professionals reached out offering to serve as expert witnesses in whistleblower cases. Harper's small office became a movement. She hired 3 staff members: a lawyer to handle legal support, a counselor to provide emotional assistance, a coordinator to manage the growing number of cases. On the 1-year anniversary of the trial, Harper received a letter. It was from Blake, sent from federal prison. She almost threw it away without reading, but curiosity won. The letter was short. "You destroyed my life. I hope you're happy." Harper wrote back, equally brief. "You destroyed your own life. I just refuse to let you destroy mine." She never heard from him again. Instead, she focused on the future. Oliver was thriving, happy, healthy, surrounded by love. He called Garrett Uncle Gary and insisted on wearing his toy stethoscope everywhere. "He's going to be a doctor," Garrett joked one evening as they watched Oliver examine his stuffed animals. "Maybe. Or maybe he'll be whatever makes him happy." Harper picked up her son, holding him close. As long as he knows his worth can't be taken by someone else's cruelty. She thought about how far she had come. From the woman standing in the PICU watching her husband choose a phone call over their dying son, to the woman who had fought the entire world and won. She thought about Lauren, who had found courage in her final months. About the 12 victims who would never get second chances. About all the women still trapped in Blake's version of in hell. And she made a promise: to keep fighting, to keep speaking, to keep saving lives. Not in the dramatic, heroic way she used to in the ICU, but in the quieter, harder way. By being honest, by refusing to be silenced, by showing other women that survival was possible, redemption was possible, justice was possible, but forgiveness was optional. Harper Morrison had learned the most important lesson of her life. She didn't need Blake's apology. She didn't need closure from him. She needed herself. And she had found herself in the ruins of everything he had tried to destroy. On a quiet Sunday morning, Harper took Oliver to the waterfront. They sat on a bench, watching sailboats glide across Elliott Bay, the Seattle skyline glittering behind them. Oliver pointed at a seagull. Bird. Yes, baby. Bird. Fly. Yes, birds fly. They are free. Oliver considered this seriously. Then he spread his arms wide and ran in circles, laughing. Fly, fly. Harper watched her son chase imaginary freedom across the grass. She thought about the woman she used to be, the one who had quit her job because her husband asked, the one who had believed love meant sacrifice. That woman had died in a PIQ waiting room while Blake chose Vanessa over his family. But someone stronger had been born. Someone who understood that real love never demands you disappear. Real love celebrates your strength. Real love protects your light. And anyone who tries to extinguish that light doesn't deserve to share your life. Harper pulled out her phone and opened her notes app. She had started writing down thoughts for a book. Her story, Lauren's story, the stories of the women the foundation had helped, a manual for survival, a blueprint for fighting back. She titled it, The Truth Speaks: One Woman's Battle Against Corporate Fraud and Domestic Abuse. It wouldn't be a bestseller. It wouldn't make her rich or famous, but it might save someone his life. And that, Harper Morrison had learned, was the only metric that truly mattered. Oliver ran back to her, breathless and grinning. More fly! Harper scooped him up, spinning him in circles while he shrieked with joy. Yes, baby. More fly. He's more fly. Because they were free now, both of them. And Blake Morrison, sitting in a federal prison cell, couldn't take that away. Not ever again.